Hey everybody, welcome to our first episode of Warhorse. I'm David Pingree, your host slash co-host, and I'm here with Norm Bigelow, a guy who knows a lot more about these motorcycles than I do. But I'm just very curious, and this guy's got the info. And so we're going to go through all kinds of vintage motocross bikes. We're going to be covering vintage events, anything that's old school motocross. We're going to bring it to this feature called Warhorse. It's presented by Vintco, and anybody that's restored a bike or looked for parts on a vintage bike knows that they are the go-to source for anything vintage motocross or motorcycle. So we appreciate Vintco's support, and we're here today for the first run of these. This feature is at Tom White's Early Years of Motocross Museum in Orange County, and this place is a motocross fan's dream if you're, I guess, a little gray on the sides like us, huh?
Oh boy, yes. It's pretty much the whole history of motocross coming to America is in this building. Tom spent incredible amount of time, research, and commitment to make it all happen. It's just amazing collection of bikes and memorabilia. It's something special.
Yeah, and the collection of bikes is mind-boggling, but even just the things he's got on the walls and the little memorabilia, like Norm said, you could just spend a day going through that and your mind is blown. So I don't want to belabor that too much. We've got our first bike today that we're going to get into and walk around and showcase for you guys. Let's check it out. All right, guys. So the first bike we're going to start with today is the Kawasaki. Was it a 450?
This was a 450.
Okay, so this is what they called the Black Cow. It's in motocross history, this thing kind of goes down in the record books with a little bit of a black cloud over it, to play on words. So this 1973 bike is what Brad Lackey raced, and I'll let you tell the story of how it became to be known as the Black Cow.
Okay, I'll try to do my best, but so 1972, Kawasaki developed a works version of a motocross bike called the F12M, and Lackey was the rider on it, and they won the AMA National Championship, and Brad pretty much dominated on the bike. So in his contract, he wanted to go race Europe if he was to win the championship. So he won the championship and said, okay, we're off to Europe. Well, Kawasaki was surprised, like, wait a minute, what? You're going to Europe? We don't have the support to handle that.
Yeah, they wanted him to stay and run the number one plate
Yeah,
here in the U.S.
right, of course.
that he had won, which is understandable on their part. But he said, no.
Yeah.
Here's what the contract says that we agreed to.
And Europe was the go-to place. Everyone
Yeah.
wanted to go and race the best in the world. So him and his mechanic, Steve Johnson, who was a pretty famous tuner and had a lot of experience in Europe, having worked for a road race world champion over there, took off to Europe with a bike and parts and, I don't know, a few sets of clothes or whatever, and went and did the GPs. Well, Kawasaki wasn't helping them very much, so they got a little angry, let's say, and decided to paint the bike black, just to kind of spite the Kawasaki not helping them. So,
And this was typically green. They were still using a Husky tank on it, but painting it green so that it had Kawasaki emblems on it and was the right color.
yes.
So in protest,
That
went black and
black
just
fenders instead of white,
Yep.
and made their own version of the works bike at the time. So yeah, it did have a Husky tank because it was nice and narrow, fit really easily. They kind of modified the bike to Brad's needs, and they did a bunch of I don't know how many races they did, but they competed away on with the Black Cow until Kawasaki kind of put their foot down and said it's got to be green.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, in those old days, there wasn't internet photos and Instagram. So it took a while for the brass over here to realize what he had done. And they were livid. As Tom put it in his notes over here, the proverbial shite hit the rotating cooling device. And they sent over some green spray paint and said, fix it, make it right. So anyway, he did okay that year. It wasn't a stellar year for him. I'm surprised he continued on with Kawasaki. They obviously patched things up. But this bike was restored by that mechanic's brother, you said.
Steve Johnson's brother Patrick is a vintage collector and a really good restorer. Did all sorts of research on the bike and made it as close to the real bike as possible. He actually found the motor that was used in Europe, I forget where he found it, but the serial number matched his brother's notes at the time. So he had the right motor, he got some of the parts. He was missing the forks, which were Bultaco forks. And I said, I have some in my stash of, somebody cleaned out their garage at Kawasaki with a lot of these parts that I ended up having.
Norm was at Kawasaki, what, 30 plus years?
34 years.
So there's nobody that knows more about Kawasaki motorcycles than this guy. Never mind the vintage stuff, but Kawasaki in particular.
Well, we ended up finding what we believed were the forks used in Europe.
Jeez.
And those are the ones that they were stuffed in my storage in my garage somewhere.
And the detail, obviously the number, the yellow plates, even these yellow Uri grips, exactly as Brad ran it. I am stunned. I'm always stunned that there wasn't some kind of padding on these bars. Those guys, that's back when men were men, I suppose. But
yeah, and this is Brad's setup, you know.
Yeah, you said the bars particularly.
The bars, they're Flanders bars, which was, they made the best bars at the time, but it was a copy of a Husqvarna bend, the Magura levers, a lot of little touches that Brad liked, the Coney rear shocks that were the best at the time. You know, if you can believe that, it's maybe 4 inches of travel. So this is as close to the actual race works bike that exists. Patrick did an amazing job on the restoration.
Well, it's phenomenal, and I love being able to kind of touch a piece of history. I mean, these are his actual works forks, you know, like that's just mind-blowing if you're somebody that's into the history of it, and what a legend Brad Lackey is in motocross, and especially in American motocross lore, as the first 500 world champion over there. And this museum is not open every single day to the public, but they do a couple of events a year where you can come in and tour through and look. And I highly recommend it if you're ever in Southern California when those were going on. Early years of Motocross Museum, check it out. And Norm, thank you for helping. I love your knowledge of the history of it, and I love the history myself, learning about it. So hope you guys enjoyed it. We've got a lot more coming. Big thank you to Vintco. Again, if you guys are restoring anything that's not modern, check those guys out. They've got just about everything you need for vintage bikes, and they can help you bring back something as amazing as the Black Cow. See you guys in the next episode.